Hello, the purpose of this video today is to not definitively answer the question, do you need a downhill oriented backcountry scaled ski? Or can you just get by on cross-country downhill hybrid types of skis? One interesting thing of note to me is that the Voilés, even though they're considerably wider than the Annums, have a very similar side cut and the same length anyways. So I don't know if you can really make that out on the camera, but it seems like tail, midpoint, and shovel match up pretty well. The Voilés just have an extra couple of centimeters width. Another thing to compare right now, let me just do it while we're here, is flex. I'd say the Annums feel softer in their flex than the Voilés. And looking at camber, the Voilés sit pretty flat against each other. Pretty easy to squeeze that. The Annums, bye-bye ski, have a taller camber. Takes a little more force to squeeze it together, but not much because they are soft. So what I've got right here is a pretty gentle kind of northwest facing slope. The snow is going to be very soft. There's a bit of a base, maybe 7 inches down. But this is what I was looking for because I want to see how much the float of the Voilé is going to allow me to ski this in a way that's maybe different than what the Annums will allow. So let's see. All right, plenty of glide to get me down that slope. I'll measure it and see how steep it is. So it was a bit of a struggle in terms of climbing to go straight back up this slope here with just the fish scales on the hypervectors. We'll see how that compares with the Annums. But doing some switchbacks, it works just fine. The next sequence of clips is going to show me skiing this easy little downhill run on each set of skis that I brought with me. With this being hero snow, it was skiable on pretty much any kind of ski, but the main differences today that I noticed were the ease of turning and the amount of flotation, which resulted in more or less glide. On average, I was able to get one more turn in per run with the Voilés when compared to the Annums, and I wasn't trying to get as many turns in as possible. I was just skiing the way that felt natural to me. And I think the reason that I turned more with the Voilés was that they skied higher in the snow column. They also have more rocker with that early rise tip. And because of flotation, they skied faster, so I could afford to turn more and scrub a little bit of speed without losing too much speed. None of this is a big deal on a moderate slope like this in these conditions, but we can extrapolate from this little experiment to what would happen on a shallow angle slope, where I think the Voilés might glide enough that you can still ski, and the Annums might get bogged down in the snow and you'll just be stepping down the mountain. To speculate about what would happen on a much steeper slope in these conditions, I think the Annums might ski slowly enough that I don't need to throw in a bunch of turns to get down safely, and the Voilés would ski faster, but they would also come around in their turns quickly enough that I can get all the turns in that I need to get down that slope safely as well. That is a more fun way to ski anyways. All right, so I'll scoot over a little bit so I have a fresh line to ski. This time I want to watch the skis as I head down. See if we can see any difference in float. Now to try the Annums in basically the same length. See how the float looks in comparison. Okay, these are definitely going slower on this slope. All right, now for the 195 centimeter Annums, so longer than the Voilés by about 11 centimeters. And I've heard it said that telemark actually allows you to float more in powder than alpine skiing. And I guess the reason would be the pivot that you have allows the tip to rise a little more. So this time, I'm actually not even going to have the heel attachments. I'm just going with my 3 pins on these to see if that makes the float a little more comparable. With a longer ski, goes skinnier, but then nothing pushing the tip down, or not as much pushing the tip down. I don't know, I think the Voilés still skied faster and still had more float, and I probably even took a more direct line down that time. As the footage continues to roll, I didn't give any commentary in the moment, so I'll give a voiceover now to kind of conclude my thoughts or mention anything that I haven't said yet. I've been talking about how in these soft conditions, the Voilés have considerably more glide than the cross-country downhill Annums. And of course, when it comes to skiing, glide is really important. Not only does it allow you to have more fun on the downhills, but it also allows you to go further and can even sometimes be a little bit of a safety concern. For instance, when it comes to trail breaking, you want to be able to make it back to your car or get back before dark at least, or something like that. In conditions like this, the Voilés are the better trail breakers than the Annums. But there are other ways to make your skis more efficient when it comes to the tour, such as waxing, using skins, maybe even putting on a lighter binding or a softer boot. And when it comes to the softer boot, the Annums would definitely do better with maybe a leather boot than the Voilés. This footage here, of course, was shot kind of on a cold Thanksgiving weekend in the Colorado Rockies, and not everywhere is going to have the same climate that we have. Snow conditions might differ, snow density might differ, and float might always not be as important as it is here in Colorado. So what about when the snow isn't as soft and fluffy as what you're seeing here? I suppose on firm conditions or maybe a snowmobile trail, the Annums would probably have the advantage on the tour. Not only can you get them in a longer length, but also not having that early rise in the tip, there's going to be kind of a longer contact point along the edge, and that should theoretically increase your glide in firm conditions and help the ski track a little straighter than the Voilés probably would. And I suppose the higher camber of the Annums is meant to do something, probably keep the scales off the snow surface a little more so that you do have a bit more glide on a firm surface. But in reality, at least when touring with plastic boots, I haven't really noticed much of a difference between touring on a firm surface with the Annums or a cross-country downhill setup versus the Voilés. Really, the plastic boots don't let you go terribly fast anyways, and they might offer enough stability that the skis aren't too squirrely either way. So let's get back to talking about downhill performance, but in firm conditions. With the exception of perhaps the Asnes brand, what I've heard is that one big difference between cross-country downhill skis and dedicated downhill skis is that the dedicated downhill skis are going to have torsional rigidity. As I understand it, torsional rigidity means that a ski resists twisting. So basically, if you were to put it on its edge against a firm snow surface, that ski will be able to hold its edge instead of just sort of twisting out. Cross-country downhill skis that lack torsional rigidity tend to be called noodles because of the way that they just sort of bend and quiver and rattle and wash out basically when used on firm conditions to go downhill. So do you need a dedicated downhill ski with scales on it, or can you get by on a cross-country downhill setup? If you're a dirtbag like I am, cross-country downhill skis are probably the way to go because you find a lot more of them on the secondhand market. They do ski really well after all, and there's much to be said for simply improving your technique in order to improve your skiing. But if you're a respectable member of society and have some disposable income and want to help out the backcountry telemark tribe, then I would probably recommend splurging a little bit on that dedicated downhill ski with scales. After searching a couple of years for a good deal, I'm certainly glad I was finally able to get my own.